Welcome to another broadcast of comics and pop culture. Let's talk shorts. Today, we're going to look at country music duets part 1, including Rabbitt and Crystal Gayle, George Jones and Tammy Wynette, also Loretta, Lynn and Conway Twitty. Incidentally, did Conway and Loretta ever? We'll discuss that later. Let's start with George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Jones began his hit-making career in 1954 with Why Baby Why, which made it to number 4 on the country charts.
Shh, white lightning.
His first number 1 hit was 1959's White Lightning. The majority of his hits reached the top 10 from 1954 until 1974. His chart success would wane in the mid-70s as his alcoholism got worse, but he made a huge comeback in the 1980s. He had 19 chart-topping hits from 1980 until 1987, with all but 4 of them making the top 10.
He stopped loving her today.
After the new style of country music took hold in the 80s, his hits would wane once again. He did make it to number 5 one more time with 1988's I'm a One-Woman Man.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll take it from here.
Because you're good, girls are gonna go bad. I'm gonna be the swingingest swinger you've ever had.
Tammy Wynette would burst on the scene with the number 3 hit Your Good Girl's Gonna Go Bad in 1967. The majority of her songs would make the top 5 from 1967 until 1979. Her star would fade in the 80s as all but 2 of her songs would fail to make the top 10. Her last top 10 hit was a cover of Dan Hill's Sometimes When We Touch, which would reach number 6 in 1985.
Sometimes when we touch, the honesty's too much.
Both artists would go through several marriages and relationships before discovering each other. Tammy Wynette may have been known for her 1968 breakout hit Stand By Your Man, but she didn't stay true to that motto when it came to her relationship with third husband George Jones. She'd once described their dynamic as, "I was neggin' and he was nitpin," a reference to Jones drinking and the fights that ensued. However, their time together encompassed much more than conflict. They created powerful country duets, found success on tour and started a family. After divorcing in 1975, Jones and Wynette would always remain a part of each other's personal and professional lives. In 1968, Jones declared his love for Wynette while she was fighting with her husband. This prompted Wynette to admit she loved him, too. She then drove off with Jones, accompanied by her 3 daughters from her first marriage. They recorded 9 studio albums together between 1971 and 1995. These albums spawned 14 hit singles, including 8 that made the top 10. Beginning with 1971's Take Me, including The Ceremony and the number 1 hits, We're Gonna Hold On, Golden Ring and Near You.
We're gonna hold on.
Golden ring, with one tiny stone,
Cast aside,
waiting there
for
someone.
Take me, take me.
Tragically, Tammy was only 55 when she passed away on April 6, 1998. George would join her when he was 81 on April 26, 2013. That was a brief look at the career and hits of George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Crystal Gayle, born Brenda Gayle Webb, January 9, 1951. She is the sister of Loretta Lynn.
And I've cried and cried until I've cried the blue right out of my eyes.
She was the last of 8 children born to Clara Marie Clary and Melvin Theodore Ted Webb. After graduating from high school in 1970, she signed her first recording contract with her sister's label, Decca Records. Upon signing with Decca, the label insisted that Gayle change her first name from Brenda to another name. The conflict was due to the fact that Brenda Lee was already signed to Decca at the time. Crystal Gayle has released 25 studio albums, 17 compilation albums, 2 video albums, 1 live album, 1 soundtrack album, and has appeared on 16 additional albums. Has released 15 music videos and 68 singles, including 6 as a collaborative artist. Gayle's debut single was 1970's I've Cried, The Blue Right Out of My Eyes. Her early hits struggled on the charts, most barely making the top 20. Then in 1976 she had a string of 12 top 10 hits in a row, beginning with You Never Miss a Real Good Thing, Till He Says Goodbye. From 1976 until 1986 all but 2 of her songs made the top 10 and most of those made the top 5. Her most well-known song is the crossover Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, which made it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Edward Thomas Rabbitt, born November 27, 1941 and passed away May 7, 1998. He was born to Irish immigrants Thomas Michael and May Rabbitt in Brooklyn, New York City, and was raised in the nearby community of East Orange, New Jersey. He was an American country music singer and songwriter. His career began as a songwriter in the late 1960s, springboarding to a recording career after composing hits such as Kentucky Rain for Elvis Presley helped to develop the crossover-influenced sound of country music prevalent in the 1980s. Before his untimely death, he released 15 studio albums and 47 singles in his lifetime. All but 8 of them would make the top 10 and 17 went to number 1 on the country charts, with many charting in the top 20 on Billboard's Hot 100.
The girls always get this real quick. I love a rainy night. I love to hear the thunder. Watch the lightning when it lights up the sky. Loose, you turn me every which way but loose.
What about the truck stop cutie coming on to me? Tried to take me out for a ride.
Really, I only had a cup of coffee with that girl.
Here's Crystal Gayle discussing the classic collaboration.
You're folks that you love to be out on the road with.
Well, Eddie Rabbitt. Eddie called me and said, would you do some harmony on a song that I've recorded? When I called him back up, I said, Eddie, I can do a little bit more than harmony. And I answered him. This is what I felt like worked, was answering him on the lines.
Just you and I, take care and trust each other.
Eddie Rabbitt and Crystal Gayle. They only collaborated on one song, but it is a country classic, Just You and I. Now let's look at Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty. We already discussed Loretta Lynn's life in a previous video, so let's look at Conway.
And as I put my arms around you, I can tell you've never been this far before. Nice to see you. It's been a long time.
Harold Lloyd Jenkins was born on September 1, 1933 and passed away on June 5, 1993. He was better known by his stage name Conway Twitty, and was an American country music singer and songwriter. He also had success in the rock and roll, R&B, and pop genres. From 1971 to 1976, Twitty received a string of Country Music Association awards for duets with Loretta Lynn. He was inducted into both the Country Music and Rockabilly Halls of Fame. Due to his following being compared to a religious revival, comedian Jerry Clower nicknamed Twitty the High Priest of Country Music, the eventual title of his 33rd studio album. Twitty achieved stardom with hit songs like Hello Darlin', You've Never Been This Far Before, and Linda on My Mind. Twitty topped Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart 40 times in his career, a record that stood for 20 years until it was broken by George Strait, and topped the Billboard pop charts once with It's Only Make Believe. He wrote 11 of his Billboard Country #1 hits.
And there's nothing cold as ashes after the fire is gone.
Hey, Louisiana woman,
Mississippi man,
we get together every time we can. The Mississippi River can't keep us apart. I still believe in waltzing and girls with old-fashioned ways.
The discography of Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn consists of 10 studio albums, 7 compilation albums, 13 singles, and 2 charted B-sides. While signed to Decca and MCA as solo artists, Twitty and Lynn charted 12 duet singles in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart, including 5 #1 hits. including their first #1 hit After the Fire Is Gone in 1971 all the way to their final charted single I Still Believe in Waltzes, which made it to #2 in 1981. And now comes the question on everybody's mind. Did Loretta and Conway ever hook up romantically?
During her PBS documentary called Loretta Lynn, Still a Mountain Girl, Lynn spilled the beans on her relationship with Twitty to set the record straight once and for all. Everybody thought me and Conway had a thing going, and that's the furthest from the truth. I loved Conway as a friend, and my husband loved him. Conway was really the only one in the music business that Dew gave a daggone for. She was with him to the end. As it turns out, on the day that Twitty passed away, he was on his way to visit Lynn's husband, who was in the hospital at that time. Lynn told Nash Country Weekly she had been watching for Twitty's bus, but little did she know that he had collapsed, and when she got outside, they were rushing him in. Lynn ran between her husband's room and where Twitty's family was, before the chaplain told her that if she wanted to see Twitty alive, she better come with him fast. When Lynn saw Twitty, she begged for him to stay, saying, "Now, Conway, you love to sing. You can't leave. Don't you leave me."
That was our look at 3 top country duets in the world. Tragically, each of these duets included a member that would pass away too soon. Tammy Wynette was only 55 when she passed away, Eddie Rabbitt was 56, and Conway passed at the relatively young age of 59. We hope you enjoyed this look at 3 country duets in the history of music. Until next time, this is Andrew in for Kevin Gibbon saying live long and prosper. May the force be with you and keep reaching for the stars.